Patricia. Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mayor.
Thank you so very much. First, I'd like to give honor to God.
Amen.
In spite of what everyone's belief is, I have to give him that honor because he brought into my life. And also to the group of ladies. A few months ago, I was at a board meeting and I said that I would like for some volunteers to volunteer to have a town hall meeting. And it was there, and I said, sign up. And it was just overwhelming. 18 people signed up. And we had meetings, and they suggested things, and the board normally does that, but I said, we're gonna flip it. The board is here, our trustees are here, Trustee Milton Payton. Hey, Trustee Liz Williams, Trustee Oscar Brown, Trustee Paula Wilson, oh, there she is, and myself. I think there's, the other ones, who else? Oh, Clerk D. Jones. And the other ones I know, Trustee Theo Brooks has a game with his league today, but he said he'll try to pop in, and I'm sure Trustee McMullen will be here. But again, I want you to have an open mind, open heart, prayerful heart. This is not a witch hunt. It's not about me. It's not about the trustees. It's about your concerns, what you want to hear. And this is not the first, nor will it be the last. Okay? We're going to keep these going on and on and on. And anyone that would like to have, we have questionnaires. Please follow the directions. They're leading this today. Again, they are going to lead this. They're going to listen to your concerns. There will be follow-ups and follow-ups. And you just keep us in prayer, and we love you, and nobody can do anything about that.
Amen.
So continue.
First up is our moderator, Jewel. She is going to give directions and instructions on how we're going to run the meeting.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
In the town hall meetings, we'd like to thank everyone for coming to voice your concerns, and hear what. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We want to hear what your concerns are. We want to get them out on the table, and you want to feel free to ask whatever questions you need to ask that will help you understand as much as possible. Speak from your heart, share what you want to say in a constructive way, and speak your mind. If you have any solutions, I think you should bring those out too. So now, when you have a group like this, then you need rules, order, and to finish in a timely manner. So our goal is to maintain a respectful space, and you're going to have to cooperate because everyone is deserving of respect. We're going to treat each other with kindness and respect, and we need to avoid distractions. So if everybody can put your cell phones on, they can't hear me. They can't hear me. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
You have to get them out a little closer to the mic.
Do I gotta eat it? Okay. Can you hear me now? What about now? Which one? This one?
No. Mr. Hunt, can you turn it off?
Yeah, turn the volume.
I'm sorry, 1 second.
I'm trying to tell him that when he's walking around with my
We have technical difficulties.
That's okay.
How about now? Can you hear me now? Is that better?
A little better. Come on, Tom.
How about now? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So what I said before was our goal is.
Let's start over.
Okay. Okay, everyone brings wisdom based on their life experiences and their individual histories. You don't understand what you think, and these important people who are shaping our village, okay, they won't be able to understand what you're thinking unless you voice it. So we're going to ask to everybody to cooperate. We're going to have a respectful space. Because everyone is deserving of respect. We need to avoid distractions, so if everyone could silence their cell phones, put them on vibrate, so we won't have distractions. Let's see what else. And I don't know if everybody reviewed the rules up front, but I'm gonna go through them briefly. So we have an agenda, and it's not all inclusive for every problem that everyone might want to address. But this is only the first of our town hall meetings, and so other topics will be placed on the agenda for the future. The committee picked me to moderate this meeting. I don't know. And so if I have to bang this gavel 2 times, then you're gonna be asked to have a seat, because we have to have courtesy and respect for the person that's speaking. Hopefully everyone will get a chance to voice their concerns. I will recognize residents to come up to the mic and speak, and the appropriate department head or expert will try to answer your questions. After the person gives the answer, one of these experts, then you will have another chance to ask questions, but it's limited to 30 seconds. Your questions are limited to 2 minutes. No interruptions will be tolerated while a speaker is speaking. And that rule applies to everyone, even committee members. Thank you.
The first up is Financial State of the Village, IRH.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. On behalf of Ms. Holloway, she had a family emergency and cannot be here this morning, so she extends her apologies. We have with us today Mr. John Lindblom. He is our Senior Financial Accountant, our CPA, and he is leading our efforts at the village to recover your fund balance programs and preparing the village for its audits. To my left is Daniel Barbara, who is our staff accountant, and he is also working daily at the village with Cecilia and the rest of your staff, and he is also working on reconciling your fund balance accounts so that we can prepare for audits. And to my right is Karen Oku. Karen is a CPA and a certified fraud examiner, and she has been reviewing your records from 2015 and 2016, and will have a report prepared for us by the end of the month on her findings. So John will start off briefing you on our recovery efforts. He'll be followed by Daniel, who will discuss the tax incremental financing issues, and then finally with Karen, who will talk to you a bit about her audit, which is fraud examination.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to thank the village for inviting IRH to the town hall. We're delighted to be a part of the proceedings here. As Mr. Rogers mentioned, myself and Daniel and Karen will be making presentations. So we ask that you defer your questions until we're done in the interest of time, so everyone gets a chance to ask questions. So I want to introduce myself. I am John Lindblom. I've been with IRH since May. I am a graduate of Governor State University, so proud to say that. Also, I have an MBA from DePaul. I'm a certified public accountant, and I have over 25 years in finance and accounting roles with various industries. I bring to the table a lot of experience. I wanted to briefly, we've been in the village offices and we're working in the fund balance system currently. And I wanted to first bring out why we're here and basically highlight some of the issues that the village is now facing on the financial end. So in your handouts, if you want to follow along, please do. I'm going to go through some of the things, some of the findings that we have that really kind of explain why we're here and the fact and that we're trying to help the village get back on track. I'll start out with financial record keeping. We discovered that the general ledger has not been maintained since 2015 through the current fiscal year, 2018 here. There haven't been any account reconciliations performed. And part of that is has to do with control over records and documentation storage, there's been inadequate controls with that. The last fiscal audit completed by certified auditors was back in 2015. So we're 2 years behind, the village is 2 years behind in their audits. So we're basically reviewing the records. There's reconciliations being performed, and that's part of the process here is to first get the reconciliations done, get the books and records caught up, and then at that point, the audits would commence. I want to mention that the last audit and prior audits that were done were qualified opinions. And in layman's terms, what a qualified opinions means is that there wasn't enough information for the auditors to comfortably present an unqualified opinion. That is to say, they didn't have enough information in the scope of their audit to feel comfortable in saying that everything was fine. A qualified opinion can also mean that the entity being audited has not maintained proper, generally accepted accounting principles in their daily operations. One of the things for the village currently that needs to be worked on is the current fiscal year budget. The budget as it stands is not reflective of actual and anticipated revenues and expenses. And we also found that it lacks supporting documentation, which is crucial. The supporting documentation would be additional schedules to support the numbers that are presented in the budget, as well as necessary forms that should be completed in the budgeting process. So the budget as it stands needs to be worked on. Budgets are a useful tool. It's a management tool, financial management tool, and throughout the year, it's a living, breathing thing. So changes come up that necessitate budget amendments throughout the year. So once a budget is done, it's not set in stone. There are budget amendments that are done. But we need to get to a starting point for the village to know what their revenues and expenses are and know where the village stands financially. So that's a lot of work needs to be done with that. Another thing that we found is on the staffing front, there's inadequate staffing to meet the financial record keeping and reporting needs. Part of this was due to a reduction in staff about a year and a half ago. And really currently the village needs 1 or 2 people in the office to adequately maintain the financial records. I give a lot of credit to the people that are currently working in there. They're working hard. They're going above and beyond their normal responsibilities to try to keep the financial records and keep the village going on the financial end. Another thing that we found is that turnovers and vacancies in a couple of the key positions over a number of years. When you don't have the continuity in leadership positions in the finance office and the village hall, and I'm speaking to the village manager, when you don't have that continuity, that's where some of the problems can occur. So if that can be stabilized, if the village can get some kind of continuity with that, I think it would help tremendously. There were some other things that we found that I'll touch briefly upon. The current financial records, as we're reviewing them, don't fully reflect the village liabilities, outstanding debt of the village. There are things that really aren't on the books that need to be captured. I'll give an example. Fire Department Pension Fund, there's a judgment that is pending and it's not reflected in the books. That information needs to be out there. Review of finance office operations, I'm seeing that it's lacking some internal controls. And when I speak to internal controls, it's processing of money coming in, money going out, probably as simple as that. That's what it comes down to. The current accounting system for the village, it seems to be an adequate system based on my initial review. This is my first go-around with the fund balance system. I've never worked with a accounting system for municipalities, but when it's all said and done, at the end of the day, most accounting systems are the same, just a little bit different with the municipality. We found that the fund balance system does have a lot of potential, and there are pieces to it that could be used to a greater extent, especially in terms of reporting. Now I'm going to briefly go into some of the work that we are doing with the village, and this is all at the end game, getting your financials caught back up and getting things back on track for the village financially. We have staff accountants, as I said, including myself, working in the village offices right next door. We're reconciling all village financial activity, and we're going back as far as fiscal year 2012, and that the end goal is to have reconciliations done with the general ledger to third-party documentation, including bank statements, to have that process completed as soon as possible in order to get the audits completed and get the village caught up with their audits. As we go through this, as we're doing our reconciliations, as I mentioned, we're in the system. We'll be making adjusting entries, and we'll also be recording any activity that was not booked. So that'll be part of the process. All right, I'll just kind of briefly wrap it up here, since we have a couple people speaking here. We have a accounting firm, the Walker Group. They'll be performing the audit once the reconciliations are complete, and we're working with them on a timetable to get that done. We've also developed a accounting procedures manual that we're currently working with the village on and tightening that up with the goal of getting the necessary internal controls in place. We also have a law firm that's reviewing the TIF agreements, and Daniel will be speaking to the tax incremental financing is what it is. For those of you who aren't familiar, Daniel will be speaking to that. And I'd like to thank everyone for your time.
Thank you for having me here. I am Daniel Garber, and I'm staff accountant of IRH. I did my master's in accounting at Governor State University, and I'm part of IRH team that is here to help the village. Now I'm going to talk about the TIF, but I'll not go into details because our lawyers are reviewing some of the TIF agreement, and they are going to advise the lawyers of the village as to what is in the agreement and what it all entails. So I'll not go deep into it, but I'm going to explain what the TIF is and what it is used for, so you get an understanding of what TIF is. Now, to start with, TIFs have been in the system for a long time. It started in California in the 1950s. They used it to raise revenue from future owners of properties to bring about economic development in their cities or village. So it came to Chicago in 1984, and since that, most villages have been using it for development purposes. Now, what is a TIF? It stands for Tax Incremental Financing. It is a tool that villages usually use to raise revenue from property taxes or estate taxes to bring about economic development in certain places that they think is underdeveloped. Now, in doing so, they create TIF districts. Now, in creating a TIF district, there are certain criteria that they use to create one. Usually, it is a place that is unlikely to see any private development without the assistance of government incentives. So, the incentive comes in the form of what? TIF. That is the property taxes from what? The increase in value of the property. So they use that money to bring about economic development in the village. Now, how does it work? Now, if you have a property, let's say a business, they have a building. Now, the Will County Assessor's Office, they come up with what? A base value for it. So any increase in the value of that building is taxed and put into the TIF account. Now, the business can use that money to what? To redevelop what? That building, to add more what? Value to it. So in essence, in the future, they are going to pay more property taxes on those buildings. And the village can also use that money to bring about some sort of what? Economic development what? In the village. So now I gave an example. Suppose you have a building or a business, XY business has a building in University Park, and it's within a TIF district. Now the assessor can assess the value of the building to be, let's say, 10 million. Now, any increase in the value of the building, let's say they do some renovations and now the building is valued at 12 million. It means that there's 2 million extra value added to the building. So the taxes from that 2 million is what put into the TIF account for development purposes. Now, if there is no TIF district, it means that the tax on that 2 million will have to be used by all the taxing bodies, the library district, the school district, they all have parts in that 2 million. But because it is put into the TIF, they cannot have access to that. It can only be used for economic development in the village. So after the life of the TIF, whatever is inside the TIF is what distributed to all the taxing bodies. So that is how the TIF actually works. Now, what are some of what the expenses that can be paid out of the TIF? One is what? Administrative what? Purposes. Once you are establishing a TIF district, now all the legal fees, the surveys, all the consultation fees can be taken out of what? That TIF money. Now, rehabilitation or renovation can also be taken out of the TIF money. Suppose you have a business that has spent 2 million, has paid, let's say, 2 million into a TIF account, and they've also spent another 1 million to renovate their building they can have reimbursement of what? That 1 million from the tax that they paid. So in the future, the value of that building will be 13 million, and the taxes on it will go up because you've added more value. It is like luring the business to increase the value of the building so you can tax them more in the future. So rehabilitation purposes. Now acquiring land and preparing it also, you can have reimbursement from the TIF. Now job training. Now if the business is training people in the community, they can also have reimbursement from the TIF for that job training. Then you also have construction of public works or improvements. Let's say pavements and then patching up the roads and all that can also be used out of the TIF. Now financing the interest that businesses use to take loans to develop their project can also be reimbursed. And then relocation costs. That one, it depends. If the law allows it, then it can be paid out of the TIF. Also, if the TIF agreement allows it, it can also be paid out of the TIF. Now, when do you think it is the right time to pay a TIF expense? Now, the business should be able to bring supporting documents to prove to the satisfaction of the village before they pay out any reimbursement. Let's take the job training, for example. If they train people in the community, now they have to prove that. They have to bring the TIF agreement with them, names of those trained, the hours trained, the amount they spent, where they live, should all be they should be able to provide documents to show all this before they can be reimbursed. Let's take it that they train people, but all the people they trained are, let's say, living in Chicago, or they have other locations. Now, if they train part of their workers in a different location in Chicago, and then they are asking for reimbursement, it doesn't make sense to give them that money because they are training people in Chicago. So it should be people within the TIF district. If they have workers here who are living here and they are training them, they can come for reimbursement. So they need to prove all this before the TIF is also given out to them. Now, in conclusion, the TIF is not free money that is given to the village because all the taxing bodies are supposed to enjoy from it, but because of economic development, it is locked up in a TIF account. So you have to really make sure that it is spent well because it is to the disadvantage of the other taxing bodies. So after the 23-year period, then they can all have a share in it. But before that, it is only the village that is usually administering that TIF account. So it is very important that the village manages the TIF very well because it is to the disadvantage of other taxing bodies. So that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Duval. That was excellent. Can I ask for everybody who's going to present, to kind of make it concise so the residents, it's about them, can you have time to ask questions? But thank you, that was excellent.
Good morning. Can you hear me well?
A little louder.
Okay. Is that better? Okay. Already Mr. Rogers has introduced me. I'm Karen Oku, and I'm with IRH, that is Mr. Rogers and Emma Holloway and Daniel and John and the others. And I want to thank the village for having us here today and also the opportunity to be able to be part of this team. Thank you. So as you all see, my presentation will be from the forensic analysis section. I'll try to make it very good.
A little louder.
A little louder. Okay, my presentation will be on the forensic analysis piece of the work. Thank you very much. I'm Karen Oku. I am a CPA, I'm a CFA, I'm a CA, and I had the master's degree in accounting from Loyola University, Chicago. Okay, so I consider Mr. Rogers and Emma as expert, even though, they are not forensic expert in this aspect, looking for evidence from computers and networks and digital devices. But yes, they are expert in their field and they are giving us the opportunity to help the village who is in turn helping us by having us here. So I'll start by introducing myself as a CFA. I am CFA, because if you turn to the third page, you see what it means. I'm a forensic accountant. And what does that mean? Simply means I'm using my accounting skills to help in work that has to do with actual or threatened civil or criminal litigation. So my work helps lawyers out. And also I use my accounting skill to examine the documents, like in this case, your financial and business documents in Village of University Park, so that I can look for what? Fraud, misappropriation, or violation of laws or rules or regulations. And also, as a forensic accountant, what my work entails is. Okay. Okay, thank you. Also, as a forensic accountant, what my work entails is mining large data volumes and then analyzing it so we can look for potentially irregular transaction and high-risk relationship. It sounds like a data entry, but it's not data entry, okay? But thank you. And then when we are talking of forensic accounting and fraud examination, they are not the same thing really. I am doing forensic accounting work, yes. They might go to we might end up in court, I don't know that, but yes, we're looking for fraud. I'm not sure about that, but we're all trying to help to see if this work gets to a point where the decision will be made by the court. So forensic, helping court. Forensic might not necessarily be fraud examination, but fraud examination involves forensic accounting work. And also, my part in this team is just to do that. Analyze the data so we can find a pattern and then make a conclusion from it. Simple. And we all need your help. You've been helping us in this village. You've been welcoming, including the IRH team, but we're going to need your help to continue and then finish the project on time so we can resolve the issue or we get the issue resolved on time. Thank you. Then the next section, I want to tell you a little bit about how we classify, as a fraud examiner, how we classify fraud. There are really three main kinds: financial statement fraud, asset misappropriation, which is cash, could be disbursements, or then physical assets, inventory, taking things, or bribery and corruption. So that's what our work entails generally. It's not just like payables, as a clerk. You're just looking at one thing, it's a whole lot. And then before we start this work of like investigating anything potentially that could be fraud, how do we find out about it? A lot of ways. Method of detection, the next page, page 7, or page, if you have it, maybe page 5. Tips, number 1, is the highest, the most common way people find these things out that gets us to come and start looking at things and examining things and trying to analyze data. That's number 1. Then you have internal audit. It's probably easier if you have this, like John mentioned, he's already mentioned some of the things that could like point people out, irregularities in their accounting records or in transaction. Management review, accident, account reconciliation, you already mentioned that, orders, document examination, I'm doing that. External audit, we already have reports with qualified opinion, notified by law enforcement, surveillance and monitoring, IT controls and confession. Now, the next page, if you don't mind. Update on what I'm actually doing.